Today I'm going to talk about this latest project of mine, which is another version of the Large Tetrazzi, which is a 4-oscillator cross-modulating cluster. And I have it here next to the original Tetrazzi. It's basically the same circuit, but I've made some modifications, so it's a little bit different. It's built on this large printed circuit board that's based on the paper circuit version of the Tetrazzi, which it said that it's not very good as a paper circuit because it has a lot of crosstalk. And in fact, this does have a little bit of cross modulation going all the time. I can't exactly shut it to 0. So first I'm going to describe the features of each oscillator. So we're looking at a waveform of the first oscillator here, and we can listen to it a little bit. So unlike the actual Tetrazzi organ, I omitted the VCAs, the output level controls. So we have the full output of each oscillator. And this is coming on the orange jack here. Now we also have, on the white jack, a square wave, which is somewhat larger. What we're looking at here is a 1-volt scale. So here we've got about a 6-volt excursion, and this is going to sound sharper. So you can hear the wavering in it, and that's just the crosstalk. So the features are, the oscillators have a triangle wave output, which is approximately 3 volts peak to peak, and the pulse wave output. And these are really variable ramp wave. This is, I think it's a type of a push-pull oscillator. So we have control over the rise time, and if I increase that, you can see it becoming a falling sawtooth shape. Whereas if I increase the fall time, it'll be a rising ramp wave. Now the frequency range on these oscillators with the capacitor that I've selected is about around 70 hertz up to 12.5 kilohertz. So it's pretty wide ranging. It can also go beyond these limits, especially on the low side with frequency modulation. So we have a knob. The green knob is the rise time, and the blue knob is the fall time. And there are corresponding frequency modulation jacks, which independently control the rise time and fall time, or they're a fairly low depth of modulation. Now there's another thing that I did. I should mention that on the actual Tetrazzi organ, we don't get independent rise and fall times for each oscillator. What we get is a wheel that works in parallel, all the green and all the rise times and all the fall times, which are called upton and downton in Peter Blasser's lexicon. But there's another feature of this, which actually isn't available on the Tetrazzi, and that is bounds modulation, which is fixed. Now I'll provide a bit of a demonstration for this. And that's what these toggle switches are here. And I'll be demonstrating the bounds modulation, and there'll be more of a write-up about this on Pugix.com. So what I'm going to demonstrate first is some of the frequency modulation capabilities. Right now we're just listening to one of the oscillators in mono. It's this output here we're listening to and watching on the scope. So to demonstrate the FM, first of all, I'll do some self-modulation, and then I'll use one of the other oscillators over here, which we're not listening to and I can patch frequency modulation in here. So I'm going to do that now. Self-modulation with the square wave. This is self-modulation with the triangle wave, so you can see the curve starting here. So what you can see is as it starts to fall, it increases the time that it takes to reach zero. Well, it's not really zero, it's the bottom of the waveform. So you can change the wave shape with self-modulation. Now, I'm going to take the triangle wave out of here. So I'm modulating the rise time, which you can see on the scope. Now if I modulate the fall time, now I'll modulate both the rise and the fall time with the triangle wave or the ramp wave of this other oscillator. So that's pretty much standard frequency modulation. Now the Tetrazzi has built into it two cross modulations called up mod and down mod. And these wheels, it has wheels that control those. And on this module, or this device, the gray knobs represent the up mod and the down mod. So we're going to, an up mod and down mod, cross-modulate across all of the oscillators. Up mod causes the rise times to be modulated. Down mod causes the falling times to be modulated. So we're going to listen to this, and I'll turn these up. Up mod. Here's what up mod sounds like on the actual Tetrazzi. Now, this is in stereo. The Tetrazzi, the response of the VCA with these bars, with the piezo sensors, makes it a much more expressive instrument. This has no level controls. It's just meant to be an oscillator cluster with levels and envelopes, VCAs applied externally. Now, the second, I'll put this back up. Down mod. Now let's do the pulse wave here. Now the Tetrazzi, it sounds like this. Now with the Tetrazzi, you can't really sustain a note very easily because it's always changing in amplitude. whereas here we can sustain the note indefinitely. So these are essentially the same circuits. This is using through-hole technology. This is a surface mount board in there that as Peter designed. Peter has also designed this board. Now, I'm going to talk about bounds modulation, which is a Peter Blasser concept, and I'm going to describe this more in my post about this on my website. Bounds modulation means what we're getting here is a typical oscillator. It falls until it reaches some boundary. Then it rises until it reaches an upper boundary, at which case a comparator reverses the direction. What's interesting is that in this design, also in this, but it's not realized quite as well, the upper and lower bounds can be modulated. In fact, they can be modulated by they are modulated by two of the other oscillators in the cluster. And there are two switches on each of these. Each of the two switches represent a binary 2-bit code that determines which pair of the other three are to be used for bounds modulation. So for example, if I flick this up, we'll listen to that in a second. I've got my chart here for me to keep track of it. This says that this is number 4 and this is number 3 are controlling the bounds. So if I can manipulate these here, but if I change this one, it doesn't have any effect. However, if I want to use 4 and 1, I just do this, and now this and this one come into play. And I can also have 2 or 3 and 4 modulate, or 1 and 4. So I get all possible combinations. When both switches are down, the bounds modulation, the bounds are fixed at about 3 volts, plus 3 volts, and plus 6 volts, which gives us roughly a 3-volt waveform, which is what we're seeing. Now we're going to listen to what the bounds modulation sounds like. See is that there's quite a variety of waveforms obtainable just from controlling the bounds and the frequency. In this case, we were just controlling the bounds. But as the bounds come close together, it takes less time to reach the boundary, and that increases the pitch as well. So bounds modulation affects both pitch and shape. So I think I'll conclude by bringing up another oscillator here. Now we're looking at this one. So we can look at two, and we can listen to two of them. So I'll bring up the other one. So I set that so that each of these is being bounds modulated by these two. In the opposite way, in that on this one, 4 is setting, or this is setting the lower bound, and this is the upper bound. And on this oscillator, this one's setting the upper bound, and this is setting the lower bound. But of course, all these modulations can be combined together, so I'm just going to leave you with a demonstration of how wild and crazy this can get.